thank you. I'm not sure thank you is the right word. Thank you for inviting me to have a chat about the Mile Day at Guston. It started off really with me. I think most of my teaching starts with me and what I like doing, and try and get as much of me into my classroom as I possibly can. And my journey with Mile Day started about 14 years ago, from a very selfish point of view, when I was called into a head teacher's office and I was told off for wearing inappropriate attire, because at that point I would wear my PE kit as much as I possibly could to school. This is what I dress like, what I'm wearing now, and if at all possible, at any given opportunity, I will wear that type of clothing to school. I can't stand shirts and trousers, and still for the life of me don't really understand what the point of a tie is. So thus started my mission to wear sports clothing in school as much as possible. So when the opportunity to run a mile came along, as well as wear my sports clothing in school, I felt that actually I had achieved all my goals in one foul swoop. This obviously was a very small motivation to start the Mile Day at Guston. On a personal note, I started running when I was 29. Before this, I'd always been overweight, an overweight child. This is me just down here, a little bit nice and chunky. Well, not big, but I was slightly overweight. And I was creeping in my 20s into obesity. I'd always been on the larger side. I'd suffered the jibes at school from children that were thinner than me, and accepted my place as the fat kid at school. And at that point, I was one of the very few. I was involved in sport a lot, through rugby and swimming, but would overeat. And not until I took up running did I realise that actually I could be a lot fitter than I was. Now I run for Ashford District, and I take part in many runs around the country with, this is my wife, this is a variety of different races, in action races and everything I possibly can, and absolutely love it. From a school point of view, 3 years ago I sent my children to run around the field, freezing cold one morning, to run around the field to warm up. I said, 3 laps of field, off you go, and realised, and I'd never really thought about it until I started running, that by the end of the first lap it was unlikely they were going to finish 1 lap, let alone 3 laps, without actually having to walk around it. And their level of fitness was just shocking. Their level of cardiovascular fitness was awful, and they realised that something had to be done about it. And if I could connect that to my love of running, then that would be great for all of us. So, Guston's Mile Day was sort of inspired by my running, and then an idea that came up by a lady called Elaine Wiley in at St Ninian's Primary School in Stirling. They call it the Daily Mile, and Elaine was worried about the amount of children in her school who were at very low levels of fitness and were going into higher levels of obesity. So she decided that she would get them into running, and she started to get them running for a mile every morning. This was then flagged up on the news 2 years ago, and it's one of those stories where I can't quite remember if I thought about the idea and then saw it on the news, or saw it on the news and then thought about the idea. So I'm still unsure as to whether it was my genius idea that somebody else had had, or whether I had actually had the idea. But it was around that about time. At that point there were 200 schools. When I checked on their website last week, when I was doing a little bit of research for this talk, they were up to over 3,100 schools taking part in Mile Day. And that's actually across Great Britain and several schools around the world as well. Luckily, the core principles were very similar to our core principles at St Ninian's. Their Mile Day had to be easy, and it had to be quick, and it had to be inclusive. So they start with a 15-minute turnaround from ours is from assembly, from our school assembly, back to their classroom and back to their desk. 100% participation, all children involved, everyone right up through to the SEN. Children running their school clothes so they don't faffing around. Happens outside in almost all weathers. I think we have just about done it in every weather we possibly can. Some children with the 100% participation, even parents, I get parents who've brought in letters and say, oh, please can he miss it today because he's hurt this, he's hurt that, or she's hurt this, or and every single time I've said, that's absolutely fine, no problem at all, we'll get them out and they can do as much as they can, they can keep walking as long as they keep them moving, it's brilliant. They can run, jog or walk. And it's not competitive, it's social and it's fun. I was just talking to some of the children over the years and they've talked about, they've said how good it is to push themselves. I just got a couple of quotes from some of the children in years 4, 5 and 6. In year 6 they said it was good to push themselves even though they weren't that into running. It was great fun and it got us outdoors in the fresh air. And I like it and it helps me get fit, was the year 4 boy who said that. The mile day at Guston, so the way we work it, is the children come in at 8:35 in the morning as they come through the school door and they change their footwear. It's the only thing we change, usually. In the summer we do tend to change t-shirts in year 6 because obviously the classroom can get a little bit ripe after running around a field. And especially as the summer term tends to be the one where they actually are doing a little bit more running than walking. So they do change their t-shirt as well. They then get on with their early work before assembly at 8:55 and they go into assembly ready to leave and ready for the mile. Finishes at 9:10 and we go straight out onto the field, the playground. And we have 2 courses, we have a winter course and a summer course. We try and use the summer course for as long as possible. The winter course is a lap of our playground, which is 200 metres, and see we do 8 laps of that, if we can. And then there's, if we can use the summer one, which is the field, and we'll go around our field, which is around about 300 metres. We start a timer, and we use the timer just for 2 reasons. One reason, to make sure that we keep it to 15 minutes. Second reason is, if the children then want to actually time themselves, they can time themselves. They can see if they do it better one time better than the previous had done that day. However, I did get to a stage where they did want to time themselves, and some of them were very keen to time themselves. Oh no, faster, 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 faster. And we calmed it down a little bit and said, actually, because what that was doing is it was making it difficult for some of the other children who didn't want to go that fast, and it was seeing that, and it was becoming more competitive than it should actually be. So we allocated a Friday to actually timing the children and see how quick they could do, could they beat their times. There was no first and last place because of that 15 minutes. They choose to move in whatever way they want to. The only stipulation is that their heart rate is increased beyond what it would be normally. And then when we're finished, after the 15 minutes, we head back into class and we get on with our first lesson, normally, which is maths. We see a great level of concentration in maths after that. One thing that we did find as a problem was socks. If you were to take this up, our problem with socks is because generally, whatever the weather, it's wet outside. So in the summer it's dew on the floor, and in winter it's wet on the floor. And so we do ask them to actually bring in a change of socks as well. So it's something else they change, but that's normally when they come back in again. Now, we have done it where we got the children changed completely before they came in, and then they got changed just before their playtime, so it didn't take up any of their time as well. So in the summer it might be actually nice to put their PE kits on as well. Sometimes we do that. Benefits and impacts. Clear improvements in the children's well-being. I accept that this is difficult to measure, but in my class I did see them become more open when they were back in the classroom, much more engaged and more able to talk to us. The children are fitter. In 2016-15, over 1 in 5 children in reception and 1 in 3 children in Year 6 were measured to be obese and overweight. Not in our class, but that's from the NHS statistics. I remember my head teacher actually coming to me in the September 1 year saying, yes, brilliant, your SATs results were good last year, weren't they? However, here are your obesity levels. Here are your children that you didn't quite manage to get from reception through to Year 6 and bring them down. They were at this level and now they're... And I'm thinking, oh my word, so we're now actually being measured on the level of overweight children and obesity children we have in our classes in Year 6. So actually, if this is going to work and get them fitter, then brilliant. Hopefully it will get somebody on my back for that as well. I was saying this word to my wife last night, and she said, that's not how you say it. Sedentary behaviour. where you're sitting down a lot behaviour is tackled. Another statistic, in 2015-16 the NHS found that 26% of adults were classified as inactive, that they have fewer than 30 minutes physical exercise a week. So this one really turns into a no-brainer, that if you're taking those children out 15 minutes a day, even 3 times a week, if you manage to get 3 times a week, you've already covered and gone above and beyond what is classed as sitting down behaviour. I'm avoiding that word. Also, they're outside, they're getting their vitamin D levels up, they're breathing in oxygen. It's just lovely. Self-esteem is raised. They do see that they can run, and they see that they can run better, and they can see that they can run faster over that period of time. It's build up that esteem, that self-esteem. Improved focus in the classroom. It's difficult to know whether this improvement last year was down to the Mile Day, or my awesomeness as a Year 6 teacher obviously can always be classed in there as well, but they were very concerned, we were very concerned at the beginning of the year with our Year 6 levels across the board in maths and reading, but by the end of the year we did considerably better than we were meant to do. Now, I can't say that was down to Mile Day, but it definitely didn't hinder it. It wasn't something where we went, actually we've done that and then we've taken a dip. We haven't, we'd actually gone up. Improved peer and teacher relationships. This is a lovely one, that actually a lot of the teachers got involved. Claire for one, definitely, and Claire's, the big one for Claire is Claire's TA. Michelle absolutely loves it. She is out there with her group of children, and she is there, and she is running, and she is timing, and they are all there, and she's egging them on, and they're egging her on. And the improved relationships between the children, as well as with the teachers and with the TAs, is absolutely superb. So it's easy to see. Improved resilience. Another obvious one, the children found it difficult at the beginning to complete 3 laps, and by the end of the year, a lot of them were running the whole mile without stopping. And improved sporting participation. In our time of what we are spending our money on and getting our children involved in school sports, while this isn't PE, it is definitely improving their fitness levels, which has a direct effect on it, but also from the Mile Day, that led on to us starting a running club on a Friday, which had at one point up to 30 children and never really dropped below 25 children, which then led us out to running around our local estate, which then led to more children attending the Capel Mini Marathon, and we then ended with taking between 15 and 20 children to the Dover Park Run, of which 4 or 5 of them still go on a regular basis to that on a Sunday morning. So within the curriculum, obviously, when questions come up about Mile a Day is how can you directly link it to the curriculum? We found all these ways quite easy. PE, it's a very easy one. While it isn't PE, it can't help but improve levels of fitness and therefore cannot help but improve progress in PE. In maths, we've used it to gathering data over weeks to see if personal health and speed increases. We've used it for mean, median and mode in averages. We've looked at it for plotting graphs. We've calculated fastest and slowest. We've looked at differences in time. Endless things with our maths work. English, it's gone into our newspaper reports, and also we've linked it to a lot of the problems we have with the children is their experiences. So we've linked it to their experiences, and therefore they've got much more description out of it. Science, we've linked it to animals including humans. We've obviously looked to have discussions about healthy lifestyles and changes in the body. Good one we've done is connecting to schools, connecting with those schools, which links to the blogging. We connected to a school in Ashford where we sent them our times and they sent us their times, and we did it on 2 sides of things. One, they matched it with their fastest ones, and they wanted to beat each other. But secondly, they also we did it where we did an improvement one. So they sent the time differences between theirs, which actually saw the lower achievers at the top of the league, which gave them a boost. Our next steps. We've got to start over. We have been lax this year with it, and that's because of our battalion change, but we're kicking off at big time after the holidays with our first Monday back, hopefully the weather being great, so all of our new children will experience the mile a day. The use of sports premium money. It's a big one. We're going to try and investigate getting a track that will go around the edge of our field, so we've got an all-weather pitch, all-weather track, so we can actually run at all times and we can have a good surface for them to run on and really enjoy. Get involved with the Daily Mile, which is the St Ninians website. Now I mentioned at the beginning, they've got a lot of resources on there, it's worth having a look at that. And try and get more and more of our children involved in Junior Parkrun. So, thank you very much for listening.